Hey guys, and thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to make some intermediate prizes for the tournament that starts next week. And I thought I'd try a little something different this time. I'm going to try and turn these two pieces of soapstone on the lathe. I've never turned the soapstone before, but I think it can be done, and we're going to try it out. So stick around with me and we'll see if this is an utter failure or if it comes out looking pretty decent. Time will tell. All the tools and materials come out of my own pocket for these prizes, and I give them away for free. And all that I really want to ask for you guys in return is that if you like what I'm doing here, give me a like, subscribe. If you want to support me monetarily, there's a Patreon. You can buy my books, things like that. And I just roll that money right back into TAC and try and do crazy projects like this. So to start off with, I'm going to take some measurements of these guys, and then I'll go inside and mock something up on the computer, and then print out a template, or in this case, laser out a template so that I'm not wasting my material at the lathe. So I'm just going to fast forward through that process today, but if you want the full rundown of kind of that process, check out the card. I mean, maybe up here, but I'll link a card for the last video where I went through how to make a template for turning things on the lathe. Okay, so jump into FreeCAD and make a circle, pad it out into a cylinder, make it the correct dimensions for the capstone that we have, and then start mocking out what my template is going to be, or what the negative that I'm going to remove from that cylinder here. Play around with some of the design functions, some of the new things in the FreeCAD version that I just downloaded, and things are starting to take shape. Now I'm just going to go in and adjust those to my liking, play around with some different ideas, and that way I'm not wasting material. I'm just able to experiment and kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like visually. And here's about what we end up with. So the next stage, after I decide which version of these I like, kind of land on this one with the wider shoulders. Jump over into Inkscape with a screenshot of my model, do a trace bitmap, scale it down to the proper size, and then make a duplicate just so I've got it, and stamp that out, and also make my measurement for the width of the diameter of the cylinder. And now I have an SVG. Take that over to Lubon, which is the software that my snapmaker uses, put in all the parameters for the cut, then send it to the laser. And here we have our template. Got some equipment running in the background, so I may need to dub over this or just add some text here. But got my two pieces of soapstone. We've got our template here that we're going to use with our caliper gauge there, so we get down to the right kind of blank size here before we start cutting our design in. So I need to mark center on these, get them chucked up, but before I even do that, my theory is that I can just turn these on the lathe, drop the lathe or the tool rest down, so that instead of when you're working with wood, you want to hit as the wood is coming towards you like this. I'm theorizing that if I'm using the files instead, I want to hit it as it comes away from me here, so I want to be below this plane here. So I'm going to drop the tool rest down. Another thing that I'm worried about are these corners. I don't want a whole lot of excess force and vibration here, So I think I'm going to take my Dremel with a little diamond bit on it, and I'm just going to go down and round out these corners before we get it chucked up. And of course we have our safety measures. You may remember this box from a previous video. It was just a simple dust collection box that I made. I'm going to try it out today with power tool, so we'll see how it does. You can see the dust collection box is working quite well with the Dremel. Turns out taking these corners down wasn't really a big deal, and on the second piece of soapstone I actually don't do that, and it seems to work out okay. Getting everything chucked up, checking fit, making sure that it's not going to jump off and hit me in the face here. Adjusting my tool rest. Getting everything snug and ready to go. Start out just with a large flat file, kind of using this as I would use a roughing gouge. So I'm just going to try and get rid of most of this material here, round down these corners, and get things ready to cut the design in. Okay, so we have things down to about the proper dimension now. I'm leaving a little bit of excess on there so that I can sand it down later and still be of about the proper dimension. So now it's time to take our template, line it up, and then start marking. And now that everything is marked, I'm going to go through and make those pencil marks into grooves so I can see them a little easier. Here I'm trying out a couple of the different files. I got a set off of Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for you guys if you're interested. It was like a $27 set of files, had some had like a round rasp and some big flat files, and also some diamond needle files. So I'm just going through some of those options to see what I like and what's working well with the material. Making sure to stop and check my template every once in a while to see that I'm on the right track. And so far I'm pretty pleased. I mean, it's slow going. I've got this video sped up quite a bit, but it took me about 2 hours to get both of these capstones done and off the lathe. Some of that was just experimental time, you know, and going slow, but some of that is just because you're removing a lot of fairly dense material. I mean, it comes off a lot slower than wood does. And I'm going to slow this down to regular time here so you can see what happens when you experiment. Boom. And then what about in slow-mo? Boom. Nah, but this happens. Luckily, Soapstone super glues back together very well, and I have hand tools that I can finish this off with. So what do we do when something like that happens? Chuck up the next piece and try something slightly different. I have some theories about why that one cracked. Soapstone is a natural material. It is prone to having some soft spots in there. May have hit one of those and just happened to be in the wrong spot. Um, Another thing I noticed was that the soapstone was getting quite warm. So on this next round, I'm trying to go a little slower, stop and check a little more often, and just be a little more careful. So just as before, rounding that down, you can see I skipped the Dremel phase of this. I found it unnecessary to round those corners down first. All right, shaping this one out again to because of the dust that was being produced and also the heat on that first stone that I thought may have contributed to the breakage. I decided to start spraying the piece with water, and this made an unholy mess, but it did seem to work pretty well in keeping the dust down, keeping the stone cool as I filed it away. And then also, it's really nice. I do this when I'm sanding these pieces. It's nice to get them wet so that you can see what the color will be once they're finished, because as you're shaping them on the lathe or with the Dremel, they just have this dull kind of gray appearance, and you really can't tell what you're looking at grain wise or color wise until you get it wet. And then of course you can tell once you get it finished, but this will simulate it as you're working through this project. And once it's getting down towards its final shape, remove the tool rest, um, move the tail piece back, and then begin to sand it down, kind of shape and sand, starting with some pretty aggressive grit, 80, 120, somewhere around there, just to do some of that final shaping. And that's one reason why I like to leave a few millimeters on any piece like this. And then because that way you don't sand it down and make it undersized once you've gotten it smooth. And I didn't record this part. I'd already pretty much depleted my battery at this point. It's about, like I said, about 2 hours to get from the starting blanks to these finished products here. But what I did was I took them off the lathe and used the Dremel to kind of finish some of the shaping as I got more nervous, especially when that second one got towards completion. I didn't want to mess it up, so I did some of the final stuff with what I'm more comfortable with, which was the Dremel, the hand shaping. Then, as I've shown in a previous video, my soapstone carving one, which I will pop a card up top here as well, popped them in the oven on the keep warm setting, which is about 250 300-ish degrees Fahrenheit. Popped them in there for about 15 minutes till they were warm all the way through. Then added the wax to them, let them cool slowly over time. And then here's a picture of them just sitting on the kitchen counter after we're done with that phase. And then we'll get some glamour shots here, and I'll do the outro, and then I'll show you how they look on a board. I want to thank you guys for watching, and as always, we'll end on what we made today. Thanks.